Hello, I'm David Fieldman, the Village Manager for Downers Grove. The Village's long-range financial planning sessions will begin soon. This presentation serves as an introduction to those long-range financial planning sessions and provides a summary of the efforts we have taken to date. This presentation contains 6 sections. First, an overview. What is long-range financial planning and how does the Village use the plan? Second, a history of our efforts that have taken place over the past few years. Third, a discussion of the structural gap of how recent planning efforts revealed that expenses were outpacing revenues. Next, the plan, the specific actions that we took that were intended to close the structural gap in a 3-year period. Next, plan implementation, what specific actions were taken in 2010 and 2011 and how they were successful in addressing that gap. And finally, next steps, what you can expect from this year's long-range financial planning sessions. First, in the overview, long-range financial planning allows for a dialogue among the community, the council, and staff about financial challenges and issues that the Village may face in coming years. It's designed to create awareness of those issues through a data-driven process, really an analysis of the Village's financial conditions. From there, we create a 3 to 5 year plan that the Village will use to assist us in annual budget preparations and operating decisions that come up on a day-to-day basis. For this year, we have 4 meetings planned. They'll take place over the summer, they'll start in May, and they will conclude in August. The focus this year will be on the Village's infrastructure and facilities and a planned bond issuance for 2012. In fact, we're devoting 2 of the 4 meetings to these topics. We will also discuss other issues, including the general fund, the transportation fund, which funds the Grove commuter shuttle system, and the downtown tax increment financing fund. We hope to have a draft plan in place and ready for further discussion by the council by August 23rd. History of our long-range financial planning efforts. The Village has been performing some form of financial planning for many years. Our current version began in 2009 with a series of meetings that used that data-driven approach, including an in-depth analysis of the Village's financial conditions. We did have an open dialogue with members of the community participating. Of course, the Village Council and Village staff participated too. Together, through this collaborative process, it led to a 3-year action plan. That plan was updated in 2010. The plan revealed that we have a structural gap in our general fund. In fact, this was the key finding of long-range financial planning efforts in the past. The general fund is the Village's primary operating fund, and the vast majority of the services are included in this fund. The analysis revealed that our major revenue sources were flat or declining, and that our expenses, primarily driven by personnel expenses, were increasing. Those personnel expense increases were driven primarily by the costs of providing health benefits and the costs of providing pension obligations that were defined to us by the state. The structural gap, the analysis, led to the finding that the structural gap was significant and was creating an ever-increasing deficit in the future. We concluded that the Village needed to make changes to our business model. The gap I'm talking about is shown graphically here. You can see that the projected expenses beginning in 2010 are shown on the top line, and the projected revenues in 2010 and beyond are shown on the bottom line. This is a gap of $4.5 million in 2010 that would grow to $6 million by 2012. This suggested again that the Village needed a plan to address this gap. Here's a summary of that plan. In 2009, the Village prepared a 3-year plan to address this structural gap in the general fund. The plan included very specific recommendations and actions. It included a balanced approach of expense reductions, revenue enhancements, and the strategic use of reserves. But more importantly, it called for a change in the Village's business model of what services we provide and how those services are supported financially. Again, let's go back to the graph of our structural gap shown here. Now I will place in a graph of the 3-year plan of expense reductions, revenue enhancements, and strategic use of reserves. You can see the balanced approach with expense reductions, the top line dropping down, and revenue enhancements, the bottom line moving up. You can see that in 2010 it called for a slight use of reserves, and a balanced budget in 2011 where the lines meet, and begin replenishing of reserves in 2012. So how did we go about implementing that plan? Well, we are about 1.5 years into the 3-year plan, and the next few slides show how the plan was implemented in 2010 and 2011. On the expense reduction side, we have reduced expenses in the general fund by approximately $5 million. And these expense reductions occurred in 3 categories: personnel expenses, the elimination or reduction of services, programs, and events, and the pursuit of operating efficiencies. On the personnel expense reductions, we have eliminated over 45 full-time equivalent positions. That's over 13% of village staffing levels. We made changes to our health benefit plan, and we changed health plan provider network. Those were the changes that we made in the personnel expense areas. As far as reduction or elimination of village services, programs, and events, we eliminated Heritage Festival. We eliminated the bicycle race and the ice festival. We eliminated the counseling services program. We eliminated the grants that the village provides to certain not-for-profit entities. We eliminated the DARE program, and we reduced the taxi subsidy program. As far as operating efficiencies go, the village staff is always pursuing operating efficiencies. We're always finding ways to provide the same services that you've come to depend on in a more efficient manner at lower costs. A couple of examples of that took place in the last 2 years are the joint dispatch partnership with the village of Westmont. We were able to provide enhanced dispatching services at a lower overall cost through this operating efficiency. We now pursue multi-year contracts for services with the private sector that allow us to take advantage of a strong bidding environment in this current economic condition. And we continue to pursue technology enhancements that allow us to provide services at an overall lower cost. On the revenue enhancement side, the village did introduce some revenue enhancements in 2010 and 2011. They were modest and only what was needed to fill the structural gap. First, we increased the property tax levy by a total of $1 million to cover operational expenses. We did that by raising the property tax by $500,000 in 2010 and $500,000 in 2011. We also increased the village's home rule sales tax rate by 1/4 cent. This became effective on July 1st of 2010, and in that 6-month period in 2010 generated about $1 million in additional revenue and is expected to generate $2 million in additional revenue in 2011. I put back up on the screen a graph of our general fund structural gap and the plan that we had put together. The plan is shown in the solid lines, the gap itself shown in the dashed lines. Now on this slide, you'll see the graph of the actual implementation, the steps we took in 2010 and currently are undertaking in 2011. Those actions are shown on the solid line. And what it shows here is substantial expense reductions, that top line dropping down, and a very small net increase in the total general fund revenues, that bottom line moving up. You will also see that there were no use of reserves in 2010 and no planned use of reserves in 2011, i.e. a balanced budget for 2011. A summary of the plan implementation. First and foremost, the plan is working. It has addressed the structural gap, and it's done so primarily through expense reductions. As far as next steps, the village will continue with long-range financial planning. We have 4 meetings scheduled beginning in May and running through August. The public is invited and encouraged to attend these sessions. Information about these long-range financial planning sessions will be posted on the village's website, so please check there for further updates. Thank you for viewing this presentation.